Welcome to Seavine's Gitmo Watch. Yes, we are having another Gitmo Watch, and we are going to start doing these on a regular basis now because I am coming to you with some news about Gitmo. But I am going to request that you hear me through all the way to the end because I did have a meeting with a DoD official to find out what is actually going on in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, about the military tribunals. For those of you that are new here, Seavine, for the most part, has been covering since the beginning of 2019 the actual pre-trials of the KSM et al. Military tribunals. That KSM stands for Khalik Sheikh Mohammed et al., meaning the other and the others. And there's a total of 5 that are basically on trial, and they're still in the pre-trials, and it's been going on like this since actually 2003. And as we all know, 9/11 happened in 2001. So it's been quite a long distance, and there's been quite a bit of frustration about the actual length of time. And then, of course, we're going to go over briefly for those of you that had missed many previous shows. So please bear with me here about all of 2019. At the very end of 2019, there was one more military pretrial, and that was in January of 2020. We stopped covering it in 2019. We went to the very last one in 2019 because we felt it wasn't going anywhere. And we were a little frustrated, and it was a waste of time. It was very, very expensive to do it. But 2020 in January turned out to be a pretty big situation where there was quite a bit of talk. And it wound up being the very last pretrial. And a lot went on in that. What is interesting, just the last couple of days, some of the actual transcripts from that was finally posted. I had looked and looked and looked all year to see what was going on in that January, what we had missed and everything. And some of it, of course, was in closed proceedings, not all open. And I couldn't find it. Well, they just now posted it. There is movement going on. There are some things happening. But what I want to bring to your attention is January of 2020 being the very last actually pre-trial proceeding. There was going to be another one starting in just 2 weeks in February of 2020 at the end of the January one. At the very end of the January proceedings, very last day actually, Judge Cohen had made a statement without going into all the details of the entire month that this is not verbatim, but the gist of it was that if he found out through study, he had some very, very hard decisions to make, that if the government and or quote unquote the CIA was found to be misbehaving, listening in on a lot of conversations that they shouldn't have been, and etc., he was going to throw the entire KSM et al. Out of court. Just going to throw it out of court. And so that was his last statement right there. Well, within just a couple of weeks after that, Judge Cohen abruptly quit, citing that it was a kind of a cryptic statement that he was doing this out of concern for his family. Now, remember the judge that he took over for the year before, Judge Cohen took over first in June, stating, he was never going to leave. He had planned to stay to see this to the end. And one thing of importance I forgot to mention, one of the most important things he did in holding feet to the fire during the time that it was in his tenure was that he actually set a date for the tribunals. Out of all these years, this was the first time that he actually put out an order that the actual KSM et al. Pretrials was going to go to trial, and the date was set January 11th, 2021. January 11th, 2021. And there was a lot of uproar. Well, that's not going to give us enough time. And it's, I was rolling my eyes. I couldn't believe it. But anyway, so he had done that. But Judge Cohen took over for another judge earlier. And that judge, I believe it was in February or March, maybe March of 2019, had an emergency where in the middle of one of the proceedings, he had a detached retina and he had to be airlifted off of the island. So there has been, and it was very soon after that, I can't think of his name. I'm gonna have to look it up. I'll remember it in a minute. But the judge stated just soon after that he was going to be transferring to another position. So that is why Judge Cohen came in to replace him. And that's why they were asking to make certain this guy's going to stay. Well, when this happened, this here January in 2020, or in 2020, and all of a sudden he just quits, that's highly unusual. And since that point, if you remember, going back to look back, when did everything start to hit the fan, so to speak, having to do with COVID? It happened right around that time, towards the end of January, right after that last proceeding is when it really hit the fan. And then in February, there was notifications that they were going to be closing Gitmo because of COVID, because they couldn't be sending planes and everything over to the island. And so they were going to have to close it down for, a month or two until got ahead of the curve. Remember that? Well, as time went on throughout the year, every single month after that, and it was a very jam-packed filled situation, was canceled. So basically the entire year of 2020, except for January, was canceled because of COVID. Well, just now there has been movement, and so let me get to that in what was going on. I spoke to my source and in the DoD, and this is what he said, some of the things that are going on right now. Now, mostly with the KSM et al., he said that there was a judge that they were going to have replaced. His last name was Keane, Kaeane. And this judge was going to be replacing Cohen. Well, very soon after that, Judge Keane recused himself and said that he had too many friends and family members and associates and just people, individuals that he knew that were involved in 9/11. So he felt that, it would come out during the voir dire that he had too many close ties. So he recused himself. And so then there was another couple of months, and then they found another judge, Judge McCall. And so Judge McCall, actually, when you look on the court calendars and also the new orders coming out and so on, they have his bio up there and it looks all hunky-dory. Well, the government is saying that they don't want McCall because he had to have had 2 years prerequisite on the bench that he did not have. And so he's basically not going to go on. And so they're continuing to look for judges. Now, I'm going to stop here just for a moment, and I want to remind you of something that's going on right now, besides tomorrow, or it's going to be November 3rd, maybe by the time you see this, is obviously the election. That's a biggie. But also around this time is this huge uptick of COVID cases, of what they're saying. Huge uptick of COVID cases is what they're saying. Now, especially in Europe and so on, although interestingly enough, the flu has basically dropped down to 3% worldwide. That's just, observation. But anywho, so all this is what they're saying is starting to uptick in the United States. Another excuse for lockdowns, and they're really getting tough on that. All right, I digress. Why would they be discussing about opening up GTMO again when the original reason they were shutting it down was because of COVID? Okay, well, we got this uptick, and yet this is going on. Okay, again, you're gonna have to look at things a little bit beneath the surface here. All right, to move on, with to go back to what we were talking about with the KSM et al. Basically, they are putting a plan on the table, and as it stands of this moment, they're looking to start the pre-trials again to finish them up, which is going to be in March. And they're putting up, I mean, they just got through putting up the transcripts, and they're doing all this work going on. And then there's a couple others that are also having trials above and beyond the KSM et al., which I really don't cover. I don't know that much about it. But there's Hadi, who they plan to get on the island for a deposition, which is going to be coming also in March. And then there's the capital case with the coal bombing. They have a Judge Acosta, and they plan to get on the island. That's also going to be happening in March. And then there's the Kahn trial. That's K-A-H-N. The trial is scheduling order, Judge Watkins, and they're looking at possibly in May. Now, what's interesting is with the Kahn trial, he already pled guilty years ago. And one thing that our source said, that he possibly, because he also went through enhanced interrogation, and it's not a capital case, it's a pre-sentencing hearing in DC, excuse me, in what they're going to do is they may possibly release him, especially with the enhanced interrogations, for time served. So that's kind of different, and it's definitely very different from what's been going on for quite some time. All right. I was listening to this, and I said to him, you know, this is really going to tick a lot of people off. You know, I don't understand. What do you mean? It's like, this is the same old what's before. You know, continue on with pre-trials, more delays. We can sit here and figure out until the cows come home, more and more excuses and why that's going to be delayed and so on. It's like, this is a big nothing burger. You know, it's great that they're going ahead and they're making plans to be able to do this. But then he made a couple of statements I want to talk to you about. And this is what this is really about. We are going to sit here together, and we're going to be taking a look at a couple of other things on the side, and we'll see what you think. First off, in all fairness, one thing that he said that we need to keep in mind: we should not be shooting the messenger, so to speak. There's people in Guantanamo Bay that are going through the trials, you know, the attorneys and everyone that's going on there, the individuals with the DoD, they're doing their job. They're doing the things way things are set up to work, the system. Okay, they don't have the luxury of, you know, just doing things on their own or hurrying things up or whatever. It's the system that's broken. It's a system that needs to be fixed. And just a reminder that President Trump has said not only about the tribunals in Guantanamo Bay, but also federal courts, that there is going to be a certain level of not re-education, that's not the word for it, but to help update individuals that never received information about what the Constitution is and what you can and can't do. A lot of things were put into place, quite frankly, that is causing things to be slow walked to such a degree that it is. So that is going to be taken care of. Well, it still comes down to, is it going to be in our lifetime? This is beyond ridiculous. Beyond ridiculous. It's like, let's get her done. I'm not talking about hurrying things through. That's not what I'm saying, but this is beyond ridiculous. And he goes, well, there is something you may want to consider. The order that was put down by Judge Cohen technically is still in effect. Technically, we're supposed to go to court for the tribunals January 11th, 2021. Repeat that. Technically, the order is still in place for January 11th, 2021 for these proceedings to go to actual trial. Well, what's so big about that? Well, first off, if they're making plans going on in March and so on, and it's so quick for January 11th coming up, why wouldn't they have that order rescinded? There's still, orders and all sorts of things going on there. Why wouldn't they do that? I think there's a key there. Now, we can only speculate, but there are a couple of things that we need to do because we are not being told the whole story. We're not being told what's going on. So I am going to bring to your attention some observations that I have made. And I would love to hear your thoughts about it. I would love to also hear your observations, besides the obvious that this is taken for flippin' ever. The actual observations of what's going on beneath the surface. Now, here's some things to consider. I told you before in the past that Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, GTMO, was created for Al-Qaeda terrorists. Al-Qaeda terrorists. I've heard a lot of arguments about that, but I'm sorry, that's the truth. Every single person who is in GTMO right now is an Al-Qaeda alleged terrorist. Okay, that's number one. Number two, the U.S. Constitution says that, U.S. citizens, you can't put U.S. citizens into GTMO. I know, I hear the uproar. I know all about the updates and things that are happening, that they're going to be building up construction and they're making room and so on. Maybe, just maybe, something to consider that Al-Qaeda is a lot bigger and broader than you could ever imagine. And 9/11 obviously had the 5 main people there, as it stands now, are Al-Qaeda. If there are people at the top, so to speak, I'm not going to mention names, but I think we all have our own understanding of who that may be, a number of individuals. If those are indeed individuals that had been a party to certain things, they could be considered part of Al-Qaeda. It's something to think about. Okay. Second of all, Trump does not give warning. He does not show his hand that he is going to play. He's a master at that. He even blatantly said that when he was first elected. If I have to go after somebody, they're not going to know it. I'm not going to warn them ahead of time. Okay, there are some things here you need to consider. When Trump doesn't say something, when he's really quiet about something, and there is a major elephant in the room, like 9/11, and this has been going on forever, And how much have we really heard? Okay, there's silence there. But let me help you understand a few things that have been going on through observation. Now, when Trump first got into office on March 14th, 2017, you know who the first person was that visited him at the White House? Very first. You know who that was? It was, oh, let me read it to you. Donald J. Trump and Saudi Deputy Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman reaffirmed their support for a strong, broad, and enduring strategic partnership based on a shared interest and commitment to the stability and prosperity of the Middle East region. They directed their teams to explore additional steps across a broad range of political, military, security, economic, cultural, and social dimensions to further strengthen and elevate the United States-Saudi strategic relationship for the benefit of both countries. U.S. and Saudi officials intend to consult on additional steps to deepen commercial ties and promote investment and to expand cooperation in the energy sector. The president and the deputy crown prince noted the importance of confronting Iran's destabilizing regional activities while continuing to evaluate and strictly enforce the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. The president expressed his strong desire to achieve comprehensive, just, and lasting settlement to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and to continue the two countries' consultations to help each reach solutions for regional issues. More broadly, the president and deputy crown prince noted the ongoing security and military cooperation between the two countries in confronting ISIS and other transnational terrorist organizations that pose a threat to all nations. Okay, that's all fine and dandy. It's very mundane, very subtle. Okay, why would they send him as the first person to visit President Trump from Saudi? He wasn't the crown prince, he was a deputy. Well, what's interesting then is in May, just a couple of months later, President Trump, the very first country President Trump visited out of all the countries, and remember, we've got, what else do we had going on here? We had North Korea, we had, a lot of crazy stuff happening. Why Saudi? Okay, so he traveled to meet with King Salman and Muslim leaders at the Riyadh Summit. Signed a $110 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia on May 20th through the 22nd in 2017. Okay, and then he went on to visit Israel and a lot of other countries after that. But that's pretty much the timeline that was going on there. Well, interestingly enough, in June 2017, which is a couple of months, well, the next month after May, King Salman decides to replace the then crown prince, which was his nephew, bin Nayef, with bin Salman, with Mohammed bin Salman. Okay, he suddenly became crown prince. Well, it wasn't too many months after that. Do you remember when the Las Vegas terror attacks happened? Do you remember what month that was? It was in October. And very soon after that, there's a lot of things, a lot of conjecture that's going on. And we're talking about arms deals, and I'm not going to get into all that right now. There's a lot of digging that I have done. And if you like, I will go ahead and do an actual analysis on that. I think you will find pretty interesting. But that being said, let me tell you, it was very soon after that, like within a week, all of a sudden, our favorite letter of the alphabet, first time came out, end of October, right after that. Interesting. But as we go on from there, after this happened, in Okay, I need to find it here. I'm sorry. It was right after that happened, and it was in November, I believe, because I don't see it right here in front of me. In November, what happened? The new crown prince locked up all of the business people, the actual major members of, it was a corruption crackdown, excuse me. It was a corruption crackdown where he locked up hundreds of prominent businessmen and former officials in the Ritz-Carlton that was located in the Capitol. Well, you know, they were locked up. It doesn't sound like a really bad place to be locked up. But if you remember, there were hundreds of them that were all locked up. And one of them was the former crown prince. Well, something of interest, the reason I'm bringing you back to all of this, let's go back to the beginning of this year. Told you about January, told you about February. In March, the very next month of 2020 of this year, senior members of the royal family, according to the New York Times, 3 members of the royal family were locked up. Now, the New York Times doesn't go into a lot of detail, but it does say that the brother of the king was one of them that was locked up, and former crown prince, who they at New York Times states was bin Salman, was an obstacle to his power. So in other words, the former crown prince also was who was locked up again after being released the first time. Interesting also enough, mainstream media, New York Times and the Washington Post are saying a lot of really bad things about bin Salman. A lot of interesting things. They're really, cutting down his credibility and calling him a partier. And, whether it's true or not, I don't know. But I do know that President Trump sure seems to have gone out of his way from the beginning to create close ties with him. And when I go over on another show on some of the things that happened during the Las Vegas a terror attack that happened there, you're going to see some more things also. The reason I'm bringing all this up to you, this has been very quiet. Now, many of you, because of maybe of the jobs that you have and etc., have you ever heard of Sun Tzu? Sun Tzu, Trump is an absolute adherent to the teachings and the strategies of Sun Tzu. Sun Tzu was he was the one, a couple thousand years ago. See, he died in 496 BC. He was a Chinese general, and he was a military strategist, writer, and philosopher who lived in the Eastern Zhou period of ancient China. Sun Tzu is traditionally credited as the author of The Art of War, an influential work of military strategy that has affected both Western and East Asian philosophy and military thinking. Okay, Trump has studied the art of war deeply, deeply. And it was because of the art of war and its applications of strategy that he applied them his entire life that he was going through, all his workings as an entrepreneur, a real estate investor, working with all different types of countries, building his fortune, etc. It was all based on the strategies of Sun Tzu. And he even wrote a book about it. What was it called? The Art of the Deal, based off of The Art of War. I have been watching him for a very long time and just observing. And there are so many things that I'm seeing that is just so typical Trump of what he does. As I'm watching him do things now, I have to smile. Now, I would like to, if you'll bear with me for a moment, just hear me out. And then you tell me how much you have noticed what President Trump does. These are some of the quotes from Sun Tzu. I'm going to go ahead and read them here to you. First one, be extremely subtle, even to the point of formlessness. Be extremely mysterious, even to the point of soundlessness. Thereby, you could be the director of the opponent's fate. Next one, the whole secret lies of confusing the enemy so that he cannot fathom our real intent. Next one, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Next one, let your plans be dark and impenetrable as the night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt. Next one, supreme excellence consists of breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Next one, all warfare is based on deception. Hence, when we are able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must appear inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When far away, we must make him believe we are near. Next one, victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. Okay, how many times have we heard that this has been planned for decades? For decades. Okay, and they also said, we have it all. We have all the information. So why are they taking their time? Well, this trust the plan business may be getting a little frustrating, but trust the plan. Okay, so the next one, in the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. Next one, if your enemy is secure at all points, be prepared for him. If he is superior in strength, evade him. If your opponent is temperamental, seek to irritate him. Pretend to be weak, that he may grow arrogant. If he is taking his ease, give him no rest. If his forces are united, separate them. If sovereign and subject are in accord, put division between them. Attack him where he is unprepared. Appear where you are not expected. Next one. The greatest victory is that which requires no battle. Next one. To know your enemy, you must become your enemy. How many years has he done business with the very elite that are out there right now? How much do you think he understands and knows his enemy that he has worked with closely for a long, long time? Something to consider. That's probably one of the biggest things that concerns them. Next one, engage people with what they expect. It is what they are able to discern and confirms their projections. It settles them into predictable patterns of response, occupying their minds while you wait for the extraordinary moment, that which they cannot participate. Next one, there is no instance of a nation benefiting from prolonged warfare. So I threw that in there. I thought that was very important to keep in mind. Next one, thus we know that there are 5 essentials for victory. Number 1, he will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. Number 2, he will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces. Number 3, he will win whose army is animated by the same spirit throughout all its ranks. Number 4, he will win who prepared himself, waits to take the enemy unprepared. Number 5, he will win who has military capacity and is not interfered with by the sovereign. Next one, treat your men as you would your own beloved sons, and they will follow you into the deepest valley. How much has he shown love for our military? How much has he gone far above and beyond out of his way if one of them were killed in war or in battle? How much has he gone out of his way to make certain our veterans are taken care of? How much more is he continuing to do? How much has he shown that he loves his troops? I think that's it says the world. And most of the people, from what I'm understanding, in the military absolutely love him. Next one. Move swift as the wind and closely formed as the wood. Attack like the fire and be still as the mountain. Next one. I'm almost done. When you surround an army, leave an outlet free. Do not press a desperate foe too hard. Next one. Opportunities multiply as they are seized. Next one. When the enemy is relaxed, make them toil. When full, starve them. When settled, make them move. Next one. To win 100 victories in 100 battles is not the acme of skill. To subdue the enemy without fighting is the acme of skill. Next one. What the ancients called a clever fighter is one who not only wins, but excels in winning with ease. Next one. Rouse him and learn the principles of his activity or inactivity. Force him to reveal himself so as to find out his vulnerable spots. Next one. Thus the expert in battle moves the enemy, but is not moved by him. Next one. Attack is the secret of defense. Defense is the planning of an attack. Okay, I can go on and on here, but I'll just do a couple last ones here. Anger may in time change to gladness. Vexation may be succeeded by content. But a kingdom that has once been destroyed can never come again into being, nor can the dead ever be brought back to life. That's pretty, I think that says it all right there. Last one here. Attack him where he is unprepared. Appear where you are not expected. Last one of all. I'm sorry, I've got to do this one. If quick, I survive. If not quick, I am lost. This is death. Okay, so the reason I'm reading you these, and if you ever read his books, The Art of the Deal, President Trump's books, you'll see quite a few things in there. I did interview him in 2006, and one of the things I always remember was his one thing that he said then, that he said many times in his book: leverage. Don't ever do deals without it. So I assure you, our president has this. And I assure you that 9/11 is at the top of his list of taking things down, especially who he met first coming to the White House and where he went to go visit first out of the country, especially with a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes. And if you take the time and the effort, that will probably be a good thing, that you can be brought up to date. You'll see what I'm talking about. So even though on the surface, the information that I received, in my opinion, is a big nothing burger, I'm sorry, I'm looking behind the scenes, and I don't for a second, I have not lost my faith in Trump's strategies, his abilities, and what he plans to do. He has followed through on every single promise that he's made, and he will continue on. And the fact that the DoD source said technically January 11th, 2021 is still on the table. It's still there. It's not in the actual calendar, but it's still ordered. I don't know how things are going to come about. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know there's a reason I don't know. Trump doesn't want anyone to know. But I seriously doubt that this is going to continue, especially after certain important events just happen to crop up. I'm going to share my screen just a little bit because there's a couple other things of importance that you are going to want to be aware of. This is news Oh, it's not going to let me. Okay. So I'm going to get out of that. All right. Basically what I was going to tell you, if you go to the c-find.com website, there's a couple of news stories up there that are pretty important that came out, and one actually came from President Trump's campaign, and they were I'm going by memory here until I can actually find it. Okay. Of course, I can't find it. You're going to have to go to c-find.com. There is a mandate that is a warning that's put out of what they feel that the left has planned. And so, in other words, tomorrow during the voting, or November 3rd, if you're watching this on the same day of the voting, don't be so quick to believe and listen to everything if they're saying, you know, Biden won or these other things that are happening. You know the drill. You know the drill. Discern. And just look, know that they're continuing to try everything. You know, having a couple of weeks in preparation, it doesn't hurt ever anyway, just in case there is a limited amount of fighting in the streets going on, if that's even possible. This is after the election. So just be prepared. But I do know that every single time that there was ever a peaceful demonstration that required the police that they didn't want to have, and Trump kept asking, do you need some assistance? And some of the states were saying, no, we don't. And they kept allowing things go crazy. They say that they can handle it. But once National Guard got in there, how long did it take to clean up? Happened pretty darn quick. So if this has been planned, which I believe it has been for a very long time, things are going to be okay. Just stay in prayer, stay close. There are some other news stories on c-find.com that you really need to take the time to look at, and only take you a few minutes. So talk about this, all of this, down in the comments section below. If you like this channel, please subscribe, because I'm going to be doing many more as things move forward, because things are going to be picking up speed here. So you want to be subscribed. If you like this particular video, please like it. Otherwise, go out and vote. Go out and vote. You want things to happen, and for us to keep our country, you have to do your part. Good night, everybody.